Hi, this is Aaron from Workflow 86, and in this video we'll be going through how you can dynamically generate documents inside of Workflow 86 using our document editor component. So the workflow that you see here is actually a tutorial workflow which you can find in the marketplace called How to Generate Documents from a Form. And in order to run this tutorial, all you need to do is actually download that template, click publish, and then when you actually run that this particular workflow, it actually goes through all the information and the various sort of steps about how to use the built-in document editor and the different methods you can use as well. But let's just take a direct look at how the document editor works here. So you can see here that this workflow begins with a form, and so that's where it's the process is actually triggered. It then goes through some conditional logic, and then the data variables from these two are actually passed into the document editor. And then the link to the documents that are generated in these two components are then sent to this email component. So let's take a look inside of the document editor. And so this first document editor is an example of how you can generate documents using the first method, which is using the built-in document editor. So this built-in document editor, you can think of it as very similar to like a Google Sheets or another sort of online document editor which you might have already used in the past. So you just type directly into it to format the document that you want to create. There's some basic formatting that you can do. So you can do things like inserting tables. You can also style the text that you do. So things like bold and italics and underscores. You can also apply different sort of heading styles as well. So this is really good for the documents which don't really require a lot of sort of fancy styling, or documents which you might want to generate in a very sort of quick and easy fashion. You can also see here that obviously you can directly input placeholders into the document itself, so that when the document is generated, all the values for these placeholders get substituted into it. So you can see here that the name is one of the pieces of data that we collect from the form that triggers this workflow. So whatever name that the user enters here then gets substituted into this title. And you can see here that these are the other variables that we use. And to insert a variable into the document editor, you can either click on this side menu to insert it in, or the method that I like to use is if you type in the $, you can actually bring up a menu of all the placeholders that you can use. And you can also search for it as well, like I did there. Great, so that is the first method for generating a document. And the second method is by importing a docx template. Now, there'll be situations where you want to generate a document with lots of rich styling. So things like, say, cover pages, or maybe you've got sort of a particular template which you use in your company. And obviously that's quite difficult to do using the built-in document editor because it doesn't have all that styling options available to you. And so the way that you can overcome that is actually by uploading a template, a docx file which acts as the template into the document editor component, and inside of that document you simply type out the placeholders that you want to be substituted in. So if I download the template which is already included here, you can see here that inside of this document we've got a placeholder here, we've got a placeholder here, we've got a placeholder here, and a placeholder here as well. And what will happen is that we will use this document as the template. And when it comes to actually generating this document, all we do is we substitute in the right value for this placeholder into the file itself. And the great thing about that is it keeps all the formatting of the original document. So, all the styling, all the font styling, nothing is actually modified except for, putting in the values of the placeholders that you need. And when you're going through this process of actually sort of taking the placeholders from Workflow 86 and then putting it into the right place inside of this document, one way that you can sort of make that a little bit easier is, say for example, you want to insert the email placeholder. If you click this copy button here, what it'll actually do is it will copy the placeholder value into your clipboard, and then if you press Control V, you can insert it directly into the component. So it's just a way in which it's a little bit easier to go from Workflow 86, find the right placeholder, and then insert it into where you need it to be. And so that is the second method that you can use to generate a document using the document editor. Now, the other thing to point out is that there's two formats that you can actually generate a document from the document editor. So you can generate it as a docx file. So that means that the file generated will be a Word document file. Or you can also have it be generated as a PDF file as well. So in this case, for example, using the uploaded Word template, we'll actually export it as a PDF. So we'll generate the document, convert it to a PDF, and the document that's actually generated here will be a PDF document. The other thing to note as well is that the outputs of these document editor components, you can see here that there's a placeholder here. And this placeholder gets passed on to the next component. So you can see here inside of the email, this is the placeholders from the two previous document editors. Now, these two placeholders, what will happen is when this workflow runs, these actually become the links, the download links to the documents that have been generated. So when the document is generated, the document editor creates the files, and then it outputs a link to those files. And then you can actually use that inside of whatever following component you might need. So in this case, we take the two placeholders from the two document editor components and we insert them inside of the email like this. So let's actually run this workflow. So if we go here, let's start it from a fresh start. So I've clicked start, and start opens up the form. Let's go through it. Let's get to the stage. Here we are. So I'm just going to type in my name. I'm going to type in some text here, select our fun fact, and then we're going to type in our email, which is the email that the links to the two files will be sent to. And then we'll hit submit. All right, so now that we've hit submit, this workflow is running. The form has been submitted. It's gone through the conditional logic. All the data has been passed to these two document editor components. And in the background, the files are being generated. One thing to note as well is that the other way you can access these files once they are generated is inside of the file library. So you can see here that these are all the various files that we've generated. But let's go to our email, and there it is. So you can see here that this is the email stage. So we started it, generated the two documents, created the links to the two documents, sent the emails, and you can see here, these are the links to the two documents that have been generated. So let's take a look at the PDF file. Let's open it up. So you can see here that my name has been subbed into the title, and all the placeholders have had their values sort of inserted in as well. And again, if we open up the document, again, it's also been inserted in as well. So that is how to use the document editor in Workflow 86 to auto-generate documents. And common applications of this include using this to auto-generate contracts, to auto-generate proposal documents, agreements. So there's a lot of ways in which this can be used. And a really great introduction to this is to download this tutorial and just run it. Take a look around the workflow, see how it's used. And if you have any questions, feel free to send us a message as well.